a lot of people do not know how to speak English properly, let alone have their words carry any weight. And so today, my goal is to elucidate exactly how you can become a more elegant and well-spoken person so that when you speak, your words carry weight and people actually listen to you. Now, this is a short clip of me about a year ago speaking so you can see the difference in the transformation from what I used to speak and how that used to sound to how I speak now.
Hello, so I'm sure you've all heard the buzzword short form content, but let's take a deep dive into why is this actually so important?
Let's look. Short form content. It's very monotone. There's no vocal range. There's no dynamic. It's very boring. And nowadays, I get a lot of people coming to me all the time saying, "Stefan, how do you become a better speaker? How can I learn to speak like you? How did you get so good at speaking?" Because for context, English isn't actually my first language. My first language is Dutch. I was born in the Netherlands, and around the age of 7 is when I actually learned English. And I would say that I wasn't ever really a good speaker up until about a year ago, which is when I actually wanted to get better at speaking. And so I put in the effort to try and learn how to speak better English and how to have my words carry weight so that when I spoke, people listened, people believed, and people paid attention because people never did before. And so that's my goal for today. So first thing I want to dive into is how do you become a better speaker? Or rather said, let's first define why are people bad at speaking in the first place? Because there's people on this planet that have spoken English many more years than I have, yet when you listen to them, you don't want to listen. You don't want to pay attention. You don't even care what they're saying because their words carry no weight. And the first thing I want to emphasize here is the English language, which for a lot of you, English may not be your first language, or maybe it is, but just having a fundamental understanding of the English language in and of itself will allow you to become a better, more well-spoken person and well-rounded with your lexicon, etc., okay, which is your personal vocabulary. And something I get asked all the time is, Stefan, when I speak, I stutter a lot, and I feel like I don't even know how to speak English properly. And so the first thing is that when speaking English, we have to understand the English language in and of itself. And that is that the English language is very, very verbal in the sense of there is a lot of mouth movement. Right? If you notice when I speak, my mouth is going up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down. Whereas if you notice people that aren't very confident with their speech, for example, their mouths are very closed. And the thing is, their mouths are more closed because that is what they got taught. And because they aren't confident, so as a byproduct, they close their mouth because they're shy, and then they mumble. And it's very hard to hear them. And so the first thing to understand is that in order to become a better speaker, we have to open our mouth. We have to exaggerate our words. Right? And this is how you become more articulate and more well-spoken and even understood in the first place. And at first, you may look in the mirror and think you're stupid. And I did too, and I looked in the mirror and I was like, wow, Stefan, you look like an absolute, like a parrot out here, opening your mouth up and down, up and down. But the more I got used to that, the more articulate I became. And the better I became with my words. And so that's the first thing I want you to understand. Okay, and I've got 6 other things written down here I'm going to share with you, but that's the first thing, is understanding the English language for what it is. Okay, now, let's dive into this. I want to talk about your lexicon, which is, like I said, your personal vocabulary. That is the words you know. There's such thing as a surface lexicon and a deep lexicon. The surface lexicon is the words that you use on a day-to-day basis. All right, so for example, if I ask you, hey man, how was your dinner? Or how was practice? Right? You'd be like, oh yeah, dinner was good. Dinner was good. That's pretty average, right? Everyone says, oh yeah, dinner was good. It was fine. There's no substance to that answer, right? You don't look at that person and go, wow, man, you are well-spoken because of that, right? No, that's not how it works, right? But this is our surface lexicon taking over. It's the words that we use on a day-to-day basis. It's about 1,500 to 3,000 words in the surface lexicon. Here's the thing. You know better words, right? Like, oh, my day was fantastic. It was thrilling. It was exciting, right? Or if someone asked you, how was the dinner? Oh, it was tender. It was flavorful. It was well-seasoned. Right? We know those words. We know them, but we don't say them. Why? Because our surface lexicon, the words that we use on a day-to-day basis that are easy to just say. And so what we want to do is we want to increase our surface lexicon so we know more words. So, for example, the word that I've been trying to learn a lot lately is the word compendious. If you know Andrew Tate, you would know that word. Or another word I've been trying to learn is elucidate. It's another cool word I've been trying to learn. Or fundamentally. I've been trying to increase my surface lexicon by exposing myself to more words more often so they become more natural to me. On average, it takes about 38 times of you using a particular word for that word to become part of your surface lexicon. And so in order for you to begin to sound more well-spoken, we have to increase the amount of words that we know. So this brings me to my next point, which is increasing the exposure you have to new words. You see, if you want to become more well-spoken, elegant, and listened to, you have to increase your lexicon to the point where when you say something, people are like, oh, wow, that's an interesting word. This guy speaks with power. Everyone nowadays says the same words. Yeah, it was great. Then it was cool. Yeah, it was fun. It's so normal. It's so lame. Nobody cares to listen. Right? Nobody cares to listen to those people who are just like, yeah, it was good. Yeah, it was fun. It was fine. Boring. And so if you want people to listen, we have to increase the amount of words we know. So how do we do that? Well, we need to have exposure to new words. And so this can be done by reading books, by listening to podcasts, but more importantly, your goal is to just expose yourself to new words. You can even get word of the day applications that show you the word of the day. You can even go get a dictionary. There's a plethora of things that you could do to increase your deep lexicon and also your surface lexicon. But the point is you need to expose yourself to new words so that you start to learn and increase the sort of vocabulary, the range that you have of words that you can choose from. So that when someone asks you, hey, how was the steak? Instead of saying, it was good, you could say, yeah, the steak was very tender. Cooked just to perfection. Well seasoned. Whatever else you'd like to say. But you can only do that by increasing your lexicon and using these words that you may not know more often so they become part of your surface lexicon to where you don't have to think about them, right? Because our brain, we don't want to have to think about what we're going to say, right? We don't want to sit there, and a lot of people, especially when they get asked a question, they immediately answer because they are afraid of silence, which brings me to our next point. Filler words. The reason why people use filler words are for two reasons. One, they are afraid of silence, and two is because their brain thinks faster than their tongue can speak. And so what happens is people try and speed up their speech so that they don't trip over the words because their brain is moving really fast. Here's the problem, is you don't ever have time to process your thoughts or think about what you are going to say if you are constantly trying to speak. And this is why people always say, like, you know, all the time, or even stutter. It's because they're afraid of silence. Because we as humans, for some reason, inherently think that silence is bad. Oh no, I can't pause because then they're going to interrupt, or then they're going to start speaking, or then they're going to stop listening to me. That's not true. When you have these areas for silence, it makes your words powerful. I just did it there. And if I had said it made your words powerful, and so that's why you have to keep talking like this, it wouldn't have been as powerful. So listen to the difference. That's what makes your words powerful. Versus, that's what makes your words powerful. That is why you need to continue speaking and always You see the difference? When you leave silence, that's what makes your words carry weight. Your voice is an instrument. Your voice is music. And imagine in music if they never paused, if they only kept playing the entire time. Imagine that. Imagine if there was no pause in music. You know what makes music music? The pauses in between the notes. That's what makes music music, is the pauses. Imagine if you had a bunch of notes just smushed together and there was never a pause. You wouldn't have music. You wouldn't have songs. It would just be a bunch of mush. And that's the same way when you speak, and you speak and 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 never pause. And that's when you start to use filler words like like, etc. And that is not powerful. And so we want to remove our filler words. And we also want to think before we speak. So, the next time somebody asks you a question, this is what typically happens. When somebody asks you a question, hey, John, how was your day? Or, hey, John, what did you think about that project? Yeah, I thought it was pretty cool. You hear that a lot, don't you? Right? When someone asks a question, you have to think about, people go, yeah, I think that. So here's what you do. Next time somebody asks you a question, instead of immediately answering or opening your mouth, keep your mouth closed until you are ready to speak. So when someone asks you a question, hey, Johnny, what are your thoughts on that project? You know, the first thing I thought when you asked me that question was, what is the context? And whatever the fuck you want to say, right? Whatever the point is. But the point is that you want to keep your mouth closed until somebody asks you a question. Or actually, rather said, you want to keep your mouth closed until you are ready to speak and have thought out what you are going to say. Embrace the silence. So many people are scared of it nowadays. You know who's scared? The people who are weak at speaking. So the first thing you have to do is embrace the silence. Now, another thing you can do is listen to yourself and catch yourself. And so let's say you are having a conversation with someone and you do say or ah or like, etc. Catch yourself. As you hear that word come out your mouth, go no. And snap your fingers, snap your brain and switch it off. Be cognizant of the words that you use. A lot of people just aimlessly speak. With no intent, they just la-di-da-di-da, and they just speak. And that's why they're never even aware of the words they use and or say, because they don't pay attention to it. And there's a famous quote, which is that you can't improve what you don't track. So the point is that if you don't pay attention to your speech, how are you supposed to make it better? How are you supposed to get good at anything if you don't pay attention to if you are even good at it in the first place? Right? So that is another thing you can do, which is listen to yourself when you speak and catch yourself. When you use be like, oh no, why did I use that? And then now that you're thinking about it, pause for a second, and then go back when you know what you're going to say. Think before you speak. It's one of the most powerful things. If you ask any powerful man a question, even if you look back in the Roman times or whatever time you so desire, when they got asked a question, they didn't immediately answer. That shows signs of weakness. They thought, because they wanted to think before they spoke. So when someone asked them a question, they sat there. And then once they had thought about what they were going to say, then they would answer. And that pause in between the question and you answering builds tension, which makes them really ready to listen now. It's also a cool psychological tip. Clearly, I need to improve my lexicon here. Aha! You see that? I didn't embrace the silence. See, I'm not perfect. I gotta catch myself too. I'm thinking. The last thing I want to talk about is vocal range and emotion, which is that a lot of people don't have any emotion or any dynamic range in their speech. Imagine if you listened to a song or if you played an instrument and you could only play one note on the instrument. How boring would that be? Probably quite boring, hey? Right. Do. Even there, I'm going up and down a little bit, right? Without even trying to. But it'd be very boring if every song was just one note. Very boring. That's the same when you speak, when you only speak in one sort of vocal range. That is why people have this sort of monotone sound. It's just one wavelength the entire time. That's what makes it really boring to listen to. You want to go up and down, right? Fast and slow, right? High pitch, low pitch, etc. in certain points when you're talking. And so you notice if you go throughout this video, I'm not perfect, but I'm damn pretty good. If you watch, you'll see there's certain points where I speed up, and that's typically when you're talking about less important things, and certain parts where I slow down. And that's where I want you to really put the emphasis and focus on, is when I slow down, because that's the words that really I want you to understand and hear. And a lot of people, they lack this vocal range, and they lack emotion in their speech. There is no power, there is no energy, there's no emotion when they speak, and that's why people don't care to listen, because it's boring. Right? So it's like, yeah, so today, class, we are going to go on a field trip. I hope that you enjoy and have a great day. Let me know if you have questions. Boring, lame. Nobody wants to listen to that. Versus the teacher that comes and says, class, today I got something really special for you. Now, before I share that with you, I want to address one issue. And that is how you guys walked in this room today. You see, last week, when I came in here, I woke up thinking that today was going to be the day. And now I'm telling a story, and now people are really engaged. But the point is that if you can't have emotional and vocal range when you speak, people aren't going to want to listen because it's just the same every single time. And imagine if you listened to a song that was the same every single time, it'd be boring. And so you need to switch up the tones and the speeds and the cadences at which you talk at so that there's pattern interrupts, so that people can't predict what's going to happen. Because when you have predictability, people do not want to listen. So, embrace the silence. Pause more often. Speak a little faster. Speak a little slower. As a matter of fact, my best advice is for most of you, speak slower. Speak slower until you can speak faster. Because a lot of people speak faster than their brain can register, and they're trying to speak, so their brain's going really fast, and they're going until they don't know what to say, because now everything is out of whack, and the brain and the tongue aren't, working together. And now all of a sudden they're like, I don't know, I lost my thought. And boom. You're seen as weak. So talk slower so your brain has time to process and think about what you're going to say. So therefore, when you speak with power. You make your words impeccable. And you make people listen. Last thing is review your speech. Like anything in life, if you want to get better, you have to try and get better at it. So one thing I did, and I still do to this day, is I will watch videos back of myself speak and see what I could have done better. I'm going to watch this video back and see what could I have done better to get my words across more compendiously, more precisely, more efficiently, etc. And I encourage you all to do the same. So that is how I learned to become a better speaker. And those are some of the tips that I use, and I hope that you can use as well, so that you can become a better speaker as well. Now, if you have any questions, do me a favor. There's a link down below. There's 2 of them. 1, you can apply for my mastermind to talk with me every single day. Or 2, there's a free community where you can talk to me for free, ask me some questions, also get a lot of my resources I've used in my life. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, maybe drop a sub. I'll see you in the next one.